We will evict Joe Biden from the White House.
President Trump taking the stage at CPAC, laying out his re-election platform and vowing a return to the White House. It is time now for our Sunday Group. White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Catherine Lucy. Former Bush White House advisor Karl Rove. Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams. And host of the Jason Rantz show. It would only be Jason Rantz. Guys, welcome. Good to have you with us this morning. Okay, so let's put up the CPAC poll. No surprise, Donald Trump runs away with it. 62% to Ron DeSantis, a distant second at 20%. Perry Johnson, not going to lie, had to Google him, 5%, and Nikki Haley at 3%. All right, Karl, you have talked about who the nominee should or shouldn't be or may not be. This is just one slice. This is one straw poll that we knew was going to go this way. But our polling last week also showed that President Trump continues to dominate the primary field. Yeah,
he's the front runner. What's interesting, July 21, he was 70% at CPAC. At August 22 in Dallas at CPAC, he was 69, and now he's 60. So there's a slight diminution in his support. 62.
He's not going to want to give up the two.
Even among his, and this is Trump fest. Let's be clear about this. It is. I mean, this is totally Trump fest. But look, he's the front runner, and the question is going to be: is he going to be the front runner in early 2024, or is he going to be slipping in some of the early states? Early states are indicating, New Hampshire, for example, and Nevada, there's polling that indicates that he's not the front runner there. So we're in for an exciting contest, but he's in the pole position, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Okay, and Catherine, this morning we get word that former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, a frequent Trump critic, says he's not going to get into the mix. He's not going to run.
That's right, and one of the things he's talking about is the idea of a pileup or a really crowded field. And that's a thing that we saw in 2016 with Donald Trump, is that a lot of people running against him, splits the rest of the vote. It makes it easier for him to solidify his support and rise above. And that is something that I think people who are looking for an alternative to Trump are worried about. But I think the question now is there another candidate? And I think we just don't know yet. We have to see more people get out in the field. Is there another candidate who can really sort of rally the rest of the party support against Trump?
Well, and he was asked apparently by a reporter yesterday, what happens if you get indicted? And he's like, well, I'm definitely still running. And he said it will probably help his numbers, which, Jason, is probably true.
It probably is. Look, he is someone who has done really, really well because he is seen as someone that is anti-establishment, that folks are out to get him, and he's obviously going to play into that. The question is, can someone else move ahead without alienating the Trump supporters? Larry Hogan would not be able to do that. And a lot of the folks who are contemplating running, including Mike Pompeo, they will be seen as sellouts to this administration. And Ron DeSantis, I think, is playing this really, really, really well, where he's not going after Donald Trump very much, kind of not even mentioning him at all and focusing on his record in Florida. And I think that has, for him, that's going to be a very, very strong strategy.
Interesting that Marquette University had a poll of people who describe as GOP or GOP-leaning independents. 70% of that group say they still have a favorable view of President Trump. But when they went head-to-head, that group, they had DeSantis at 64% and Trump at 36%. Juan?
Well, I think that Jason's right. I mean, what former President Trump is doing is making DeSantis into the establishment Republican candidate. And I think back to 16 and the races there, and what I see is that nobody figured out how to counter Trump's very personal, mocking, belittling attacks and his kind of popular culture plays in politics. Low energy Jeb, Lil Marco, Lion, go on and on, right? Nobody really figured out how to counterpunch. DeSantis is not counterpunching. Right now, he's not mentioning Trump. It's as if he's just saying, you know what, I'm counting on something else to take you out of the race. He could actually come at Trump from the right. And when I say that, he could go after him on failure to win elections. He could go at him on failure to deal with COVID, failure to deal with immigration. You could say, look at Florida on COVID. Look at Florida on immigration. I'm farther to the right than you. But he hasn't done it. He's on his book tour, but it looks like he's a fantasy tour where he thinks he's pretending to run, but not willing to say it because he doesn't want to alienate the Trump base.
Well, and there are things that he has to iron out potentially. They've got to fix this potential issue down in Florida during this legislative session, that there may be a state law that would bar him from running for federal office. There are all kinds of other things.
Well, it wouldn't bar him. It would require him to resign for governor.
Right, to resign. Yeah, he can't do both at the same time.
I don't mean to disagree with my friend Juan Williams.
What?
But look, to take last night in Dallas, huge crowd. Night before that, both Houston and Dallas, the Republican Party fundraisers are the biggest ones in history, both in dollars and people. He is out there selling his vision of what Florida freedom means, and that's a very important step to laying out his case. And that you do things in a campaign building upon things, and he is right now doing the very important work of giving people a lot of things to understand that he's done in Florida, and that's an important part of a winning strategy. You don't need to come out of the box and start throwing haymakers at Donald Trump, but he has very effectively counterpunched. When Trump came after him basically saying, you shut down Florida prematurely, he said, well, I'll take my record in opening up Florida against your record of shutting down America, and did so in a very polite and direct fashion that I thought was pretty powerful.
Well, see, that's what I think he has to do more of. But he's avoiding people like Shannon Bream. He's not doing media. And when he does it, he had a big slip up this week on Ukraine. I think he alienated Republican establishment by not saying, I 100% support Ukraine.
You could sign up as his campaign manager and give him that kind of counsel.
Juan Williams announcing this morning, Juan Williams announcing he's going to be Ron DeSantis' campaign manager. By the way, open invitation, Governor DeSantis. Come on down. We'd love to see you. Catherine.
No, all I was going to say is, as Carl was saying, DeSantis is taking these arguments to the early states. So he's heading soon to Iowa. And what we know from our reporting is that there are a lot of Iowa Republicans who are interested in an alternative to Trump, who have not made up their minds. Those early states tend to really kind of keep their options open. And so that's the play he's making right now, is trying to tell this story of what he's done in Florida.
Well, and we don't even know, Jason, if President Biden is going to run again. We've always assumed he would, but there are questions now about these delays.
It is, but the focus can't be on Biden right now, because we obviously know that if DeSantis is going to do this and be successful, he's going to have to go after Trump. He's going to have to defeat him, and he's going to have to do it in a way that is still polite to an extent, but he understands that there's a threat here, and right now he's focused on the substance of his record, instead of being drawn into a battle with Donald Trump, which is a lose-lose for him, because again, it will alienate the base. And just being at CPAC and speaking to these people, they are very open to Ron DeSantis. They're fans of Donald Trump, and they are their first choice. However, if it doesn't go that way and he ends up not advancing, you do need someone who's going to be able to keep the party together. And with all due respect to Larry Hogan, while his argument is a valid one where you don't want to break everyone apart, he wasn't going to be that candidate to break everyone apart.
All right, I want to make sure before we go that we mentioned the train derailment in Ohio, because there was another one this weekend, not to the extent, and reportedly not carrying hazmat materials. But we're a month into this now, and the Daily Beast is calling out President Biden on this. They say Biden's befuddled response to the Ohio train disaster is unacceptable. They say showing up is an important part of leadership. Biden should know that by now. Failing to show up in East Palestine was a crucial mistake, and Biden's opponents have seized on this opportunity and used it to say, you don't care about rural white people. Juan, should he be there? He says he's going at some point.
Yeah, look, what's important here is taking care of people who are in the midst of a crisis. And I think everyone agrees, including Governor Mike DeWine, the Republican governor, and Republican members of Congress, that the EPA's been on the ground from day one. The people who are in charge of health controls and helping people who might have health consequences from the spill have been there from day one. The transportation department has been there. So it seems to me there's a certain performative aspect to this that's being requested by Biden's critics. But to me, it's about taking care of those people. And I just think that so far, based on what the opposing party has to say, the administration has been doing its job and forced Norfolk Southern to take full responsibility and promise full compensation to those people.
They don't feel like they're being taken care of.
Right, perception for people is reality in that place.
Absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if folks are still showing up to their homes and they're saying, I'm sick, my kids are sick, and then you have the EPA coming out there and saying, oh no, everything is fine, the president won't show up, you're just not feeling confident in this administration. And there are significant health and political implications to avoiding this particular demographic when you're deciding whether or not you're going to run for re-election.
Well, you don't want to interfere in the ongoing work, right?
What would be the interference at this point to show up and show your support?
As someone who's painfully been through this process with a thing called Katrina, the President Biden needs to have been there long before, 1 month after the event. A president feels an empathetic role, and the President of the United States needs to go to this place. He should have been there within a matter of days, not a matter of months. And he's going to suffer from this, and it is going to leave a bad taste in the middle part of the country, and a belief that he is more inclined to fly off to Kiev than he is to fly to East Palestine.
All right, we got